Arsenal 1, Bournemouth 2. A terrible second half performance from Arsenal means that we have now dropped points in over half of our Premier League matches in 2025. Really, really poor form from Arsenal, and I'm going to be going through the major talking points of that game here at Arsenal Unfiltered. Let's get started. Yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. I hope you are well wherever you are in the world and you have recovered from yesterday's really poor second half. I say second half because I didn't think the first half was that bad, but a really, really poor second half from Arsenal, which meant that we dropped more points from winning positions. 21 points dropped from winning positions so far this season. The most since the 1920 season and more than the last 2 seasons combined. That is quite incredible, isn't it, when you say it out like that? Sloppy second half, and we will get into it. I'm going to do a slightly different format today, trying to keep it fresh, trying to keep it interesting for everyone. Rather than going through, the game as it happened, I'm going to talk about 5 major talking points that I think are surrounding Arsenal right now, and talk about them in the context of this game. Because I think there are some really interesting questions that we need to be asking right now, and I think this game has highlighted or brought to the surface a lot of those interesting issues. I want to talk about them. Before we get started, of course, I really, really value everyone being here, and I like to call out some new countries, but I have been thoroughly neglecting the listeners from the United Kingdom recently. I've spoken a lot about the international fans, but you guys from closer to home are so valued, and I really appreciate everyone being here, especially those of you listening from Wales and Scotland and Ireland. I mean, you guys are also kind of international listeners as well. So want to welcome you guys and Gunners from all around the world. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get started then. And the first major talking point I want to do is talk about our inexperience in this run-in. Because I think it's showing. And, yesterday we lost a game that we had control of. We had a really nice goal from Declan Rice, a little bit of signs of life, especially in that first half from Martin Ødegaard, and it's a lovely piece of play from him. Takes the ball from Thomas Partey on the half turn and puts Declan Rice through for a good decision to go around the keeper and finishes it. So we had control of this game and we let it slip in basically what I would call 10 minutes of pure laziness, and a second half where we just allowed our standards to slowly drop and drop and drop. Just on the injury table right now, we have Gabriel Jesus, Kai Havertz and Jorginho. Now, of course, we've also got Gabriel, Calafiori, really important players, but I pick out those 3 in particular because within that group of 3 players, you've got 2 Champions League winners, you've got a winner of the Euros, and you've got a player who has been deep in multiple competitions through multiple seasons with, a big team. And I just feel like perhaps we are missing that level of experience in the dressing room right now. I feel like having even just one of those guys in there would be making a big difference. I can really feel, watching Arsenal recently, I really feel this kind of up and down kind of emotion. We got so fired up for Real Madrid, and in between there was the Crystal Palace game, which we did not manage very well at all. And I think as fans, we all kind of put it to the side and went, you know what, if we get through Real Madrid, then it's all fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the draw. And of course, we have that's caused us an issue. I think not being able to get up for games at multiple times in the season have really kind of stung us, especially in this run-in around the balancing the Champions League. I feel like we've lost some of that kind of emotional intelligence, let's call it, where players who have been there and done that can stop you getting too low. Like if you concede a goal in a game, the Eze goal is definitely an example. And today, that first goal, it's really sloppy, but to go on and concede another basically about 7 or 8 minutes later, similar manner from a set piece, just really sloppy. I think you need that kind of those players with that experience of being in this crunch time of a season where we have to go and do a job in multiple competitions. I just feel like we're missing that. This is the first time we've had to do a job in multiple competitions for a very long time. We've been out of the Champions League, we've been out of the Cups in previous years. We only got to the quarter-final last year, and obviously that freed us up, going out to Bayern freed us up to focus on an incredible run-in that we had. And of course, as well, I guess you could say at that time, with the Villa game in between those two Bayern games, we lost the league last year as well. So, but we had those players with the experience in the team to rally us and go again. After that very difficult week last season, and we made a good stab of it in the end. I just feel like not having those players around the dressing room is really stopping us having composure when we concede, or composure when we do something really, really well. We're not staying level, and that's costing us a lot of energy, a lot of emotional energy potentially. We need a Jorginho, a Jesus, just to calm things down and bring things back to a level pegging. And I think as well, the Arteta inexperience for me is holding us back a little bit. Now, I'm okay with this. Managers have to go through this. Arteta, this is his first managerial job, and of course he's been deep in competitions with Pep, but he's never been the front man when we've had two competitions, that we really, really need to fight for and do well in. So I feel like maybe some of that is playing through. I mean, I was thinking this morning, is he as calm as Pep and Klopp were when they were going deep in multiple competitions? I'm not sure he is. A lot of the narrative recently has been about this energy, bringing energy to the games, the fans coming and playing every ball with us. And that's a great sentiment for one-off games, right? But I feel like we've had that a couple of times now, and it's almost like this really high highs and really low lows, and we're really bouncing up and down this spectrum of energy and stuff like that. You've got to say that is clearly affecting the fans. There were a lot of empty seats in the Emirates yesterday. There were a lot of tickets on Ticket Exchange. That kind of getting up for a game and then having to go and play Crystal Palace or Bournemouth, it's very difficult to do. And I wonder if that kind of messaging has just been a little bit too much. We've gone a little bit too much down that kind of energy spectrum, and I think people who have criticised Arsenal for being overly emotional in the past are a bit silly. That's brought a lot of the connection back. But I wonder if actually in this kind of recent run of games, they've got a point around how we haven't really managed that kind of pure excitement back down to a game that feels a bit inconsequential. I've not felt like watching the players, they have really prioritised the Premier League games as much as they should have done. We still have to win them, and I think right now, following the defeat yesterday, we're in a really tricky place. I think as well, something Arteta is showing, and we've had this narrative with Arteta before, is his inexperience to trust his squad and trust his subs earlier than he is doing. Yes, some of these players are getting on, but especially Zinchenko and Nwaneri, I think they are two players who, look, Arteta has not got many options, right? But against PSG, we saw Nwaneri really, really late. We saw him and Zinchenko really late in this game. I don't think Zinchenko even got on against PSG. I might be remembering that incorrectly. But I think there's a number of things that these subs would help you do. One, it takes the limelight off a player. Let's take Bukayo Saka yesterday. I didn't think he was at it at all. We kept him on for a very, very long time. And why not go earlier? Why not go earlier? It brings some energy into the team, brings some life, brings some focus back into it in that kind of microcosm of the game. And I think that was a mistake yesterday. I think not changing things earlier was a mistake. I thought we played generally a good first half. I really did. I think we started very slowly, but got in control of it. Yes, Bournemouth had some chances, but Bournemouth are a good team, and you're playing in the Premier League against a kind of top half team going for Europe. They're going to create some chances no matter what. That's to be expected. That's why you buy good goalkeepers and centre backs like William Saliba, right? Every good team does that. So I was happy with the first half, but the second half, after the kind of Saka right-footed chance and the early kind of header he had, the performance from the whole team, Saka as well, just dropped off, and we became really lack of energy, energyless, lacked focus, a bit sloppy, a bit like they didn't want to be there anymore. And I just think an earlier sub, whoever it is, obviously I appreciate it can't be one of the kids that's on the bench, but Nwaneri's played enough Premier League football now to play 30 minutes against Bournemouth. I promise you that. Zinchenko has been playing Premier League football for years. Why couldn't he have got on earlier? And I'm not saying Zinchenko is the be-all and end-all to all of our problems. I'm not saying that about Ethan Nwaneri either. But what I think we are seeing right now is burnt-out performances from Arsenal. We have had a number of games recently where we've played okay in patches, but we've allowed our standards to drop and slip, and that's cost us in the result, in the final result, and the number of points we've dropped from winning positions is quite painful. Could an earlier sub, a 55-minute, a 60th minute sub, get on there, bring some energy, bring half an hour of running, and bring that kind of vocal voice just to go, guys, we need to switch on here. You're not doing your job. Let's get around things and just take a bit of pressure off those players who have played so many minutes. I looked earlier, Arsenal have used 24 players in the Premier League this season. It's one of the lowest numbers. I think only Forest and Liverpool are lower than us. So yeah, we have used a lot of players. Used up a lot of players is what I'm trying to say. They have really, really worked hard. So I think our inexperience on the pitch is showing. We don't have our kind of seasoned winners in there. I think Arteta's kind of inexperience about managing energy in the physical and emotional sense is showing a little bit. The next talking point I want to talk about is, are we terrible at defending set pieces? Well, you'll have seen the stat that's going around. 38.7% of our goals, the goals that we've conceded in the Premier League this year, have been from set pieces. That's 12 set piece goals according to the Premier League stats. Weirdly, some stats on like FBref is slightly different to the Opta stats, but we'll go with the Opta stats. So that's 12 goals conceded from set pieces. We've conceded 4 set piece goals in the last 3 home games as well, which is tough. But put some context on that. We've conceded very few goals. So yes, we've got the highest percentage conceded from set pieces this year, but because we've conceded very few goals, it's not the highest amount. So we just have to put that in context. I think it does show definitely one thing, that our open play defending is better than our set piece defending. That's for certain. I think that's a given. We do a really good job of managing spaces. We do a really good job of setting low blocks or mid blocks, and our shape out of possession is brilliant. And again, I think Bournemouth had that one big chance with Evan Nielsen, the cross from Kirkes, but we generally managed their open play threat fairly well. However, the set piece goals, I mean, the throw in one is just terrible. That really painful. There are so many players around Howson. So many players, and I've got my head in my hands while I'm doing this bit. So many players around him. Not one of them jumps. Declan Rice doesn't jump. Miles Lewis-Skelly doesn't jump. It all looks like a bit of a slopey shoulders moment where everyone kind of says, well, that's not my job. And I think it was a really weird one to concede, because it was like, and again, this is why I bring up the energy thing and the focus. I think we just go so passive in that moment. Someone surely has to have the job of your zonal marking, go and defend that zone, go and win that ball. If it comes into your zone, you have to win the ball. And no one really stepped up and did that, and I found that quite frustrating. The second goal, for the second time in 2 Premier League games, we left a player unmarked on the edge of the area, hurt us in a slightly different way this time. Against Palace, it was the volley from Eze. This time, Tavernier was allowed to run way past Saka. I don't know what Saka's doing. I thought he had quite a poor game, actually. And he obviously flicks the ball across the goal. And at that point, I think, you have already brought yourself a whole world of problems. And look, there was a long VAR check for handball. Some people could argue, Evan Nielsen's kind of pulled Ødegaard down, but actually I think Ødegaard gets it completely wrong. He's more focused on blocking the run than attacking the ball. I think that's something we really need to do something about, because I understand having zonal players who attack the ball and then players who block runners and mark players, and that's their job. But actually, when it turns into a second ball, you can't be doing that because you just have no idea where that ball's going. At that point, the zones are in the wrong place because there's been another touch on the ball. So Martin Ødegaard has to sense that danger, turn around and boot that ball out for me. But handball, the grappling with Ødegaard, whatever you want to argue, we've already brought ourselves the problems. So I really have no gripes about this goal because we got it wrong in that first stage. The first ball, Saka is nowhere near Tavernier, and it's an easy flick on. Similar themes, and it's a very different skill to attacking set pieces. We know how deadly we are from attacking set pieces, and I could sit here and do the injury thing again. I could say, well, if you have Gabriel, if you have Kai Havertz, you have two absolute monsters in there who are really important for how we defend set pieces. But for me, both of these goals and the Eze goal against Palace in the last Premier League game, passiveness. And that's not something you have associated with Arsenal in set pieces for a very, very long time. Again, is it because we've spent all of our energy, physically and emotionally? Maybe. I don't know. But, it certainly looks like a team who are struggling to focus for long periods of games, struggling to perform well for more than a 10-15 minute chunk of a game, which I find really difficult because like I said at the start, we got ourselves in control of this game with a very, very good goal and basically 7-8 minutes of just complete, I don't want to say laziness, I'd never call the players lazy, but lack of focus. We weren't able to continue to assert ourselves on the game. It was really, really poor. Okay, last one before I go for a quick break, and this one really is an interesting one from yesterday. How do we get the margins to swing in our favour again? Because I think back to this time last year, everything was going for us. The Bournemouth game this time last year, that Reece Nelson volley, the whole comeback altogether, the Ben White shot in that game, just going over the line. We had so many things that were going for us, and we were in a period, and football does this, right? You'll never see this in the stats. This is something that you can only get by watching a team for a prolonged period of time over several weeks. You'll never see it in the stats. Things sometimes are just going for you, and we had this time last year. Things were really going right for us, and the game against Bournemouth was a great example. So different over the recent weeks. I mean, let's take it at one game back, the PSG game. Marino was just offside. Donnarumma having an amazing game. Some decent enough finishes from Martinelli and Trossard, stopped by a Herculean keeper. And of course, PSG's goal goes in off Dembele's shin and off the post. So, margins really not going for us in that game. And here, it kind of, the second goal, yes, I like I just said, I really don't think we can complain. We've made a problem for ourselves in the first instance, in the first phase of that corner. But then Evan Nielsen, he's not applied a great finish to it. It's hit his midriff and gone in. That's something that's really gone for Bournemouth. Raya could do a bit better, I think. But then, of course, we have Saka's right-footed chance. That Trossard header, that was the big one for me. It was a lovely move. Martinelli crossed it, and Trossard heads it down really well to the side and low of Kepa. I don't think you can argue that Trossard didn't do his job, but Kepa just somehow gets down to it. A keeper who feels a bit reborn at Bournemouth. And then Rice and Martinelli, they snatched at a couple of shots in the first half. How do we start turning the margins in our favour? Because I certainly feel like we will look back at this season, no matter what happens in the Champions League, we will look back and we will talk about red cards and injuries and key refereeing decisions, and we'll look at all of that, and we'll look at how injuries have clustered and the timing of certain things. But we will also look back at the margins and how it has felt like at certain times, certain chances, certain moments just have not gone for us. One that I always think back to, that I think is massive, is the Liverpool game. There were loads of margins around that just did not go our way. The Saliba red card against Bournemouth in the first game being upgraded, so he missed out. We lost Yuri and Timber and Gabriel from the back four, so we ended up with a really weak and inexperienced back four. And obviously that gives Salah the chance to go and win the game, and where we would have had a lot of momentum from beating our title rival, we lost all of that, and it's margins. How do we get it back in our favour again? I have to say, I think a really, really important thing is talent. Really important. Look at yesterday as a set of moments, right? Trossard and Martinelli, I thought, did okay, but their chances just weren't going in, and that happens. Martinelli especially was snatching at shots, and I feel like the quality of strike from a number of our forwards is just not good enough, right? In that moment yesterday, if we have a Sesko on the bench, if we have a Nico Williams on the bench, or they've started and Martinelli's on the bench, either way, look at the scenario however you want, we can bring them on. And actually, you might even not need players of that level. Take Bournemouth's team. If you had a Justin Kluivert on Arsenal's bench yesterday, or an Antoine Semenyo, you're looking at how Martinelli's finishing, and at 60 minutes you're going, okay, you know what, you've tried well, and I'm not criticising Martinelli here, by the way. He has to improve on his finishing, and I still think he is the biggest potential upgrade in this team. But I think he had generally an okay game and looked lively and threatening and really caused that new Bournemouth right back a lot of issues at times. He was dangerous, created chances, but you'd be looking at how he's finishing his chances, snatching at it a little bit. Maybe he's just lacking confidence. Maybe he knows, he's not, again, I come back to that point, he's not managing that emotional energy very well. You would take him off. I do believe that. Not because he's playing bad, but just because it's not going his way. The margins aren't in his favour. And again, it's not something you'll see through stats. It's not something you'll see through data. You have to watch the games. You have to experience how these players play week in, week out. And I think Gabriel Martinelli yesterday is a great example of where, if we had more talent, if we had a deeper squad, if we had players on the bench that we could bring on, we would have done that very, very early. So I think squad building really is how we get the margins to swing in our favour. Last season, when we were having the margins swing in our favour, all of our talent was available to us. All of it. And actually, you could look at the bench and we'd have Gabriel Martinelli, Saka and Havertz on the pitch, right? But turn to the bench, you've got Leandro Trossard, you've got Gabriel Jesus to turn to try and make a difference. I think Trossard did that a couple of times. Gabriel Jesus, you could argue, maybe not. There were players there that we could turn to and go with. Even in certain games, Emile Smith-Rowe. Last year, we sold him in the summer, but I think it was Forest or Luton last year in the run-in. He came in and played really well. Just took a game off Martin Odegaard and made that better. Sorry, we haven't had that this year. I think talent is how you turn margins in your favour, and depth of talent, not just your starting 11, but actually being able to look at your starting 11 and go, okay, it's not happening for you today. I don't think you're having a bad game. You're actually doing a lot of the things I've asked you to do, but actually just that final bit is not happening for you. So I'm going to bring you off and I'm going to put someone else on, and actually just them being a bit fresher, it might work. So I think that's an interesting way to turn the margins in our favour. And I think composure, again, I come back to that emotional energy. I know I'm mentioning that a lot today, but I do feel it's really important. Martinelli snatching at chances yesterday. Is it that kind of ability to stay calm when actually he knows we need to win this game? He knows actually winning this game makes the PSG game feel easier. He knows that makes the Liverpool and Newcastle games feel. Maybe he listened to the preview pod, right? And he's a bit worried because I've said it's a must-win game. I think, just having someone on the pitch to, after he misses the first one, just to go, okay, calm down, don't worry. We're going to make these chances and you just need to relax and take one. Having someone like that who knows what they're on about and isn't kind of focused on hyping everyone up, is more focused on the other side of things, just bringing everyone back to a level pegging. Does that help Martinelli not snatch at these chances? I don't know, but I do think emotional energy is a big bit of it, and talent will massively help us swing the game in our favour. All the tactics in the world will not outfox a really talented squad over 38 games. It just won't. And we haven't had the talent to turn to when it hasn't been going our way. I'm going to take a short break, and when I come back, I'm going to speak about 21 points dropped from winning positions, the emotional and physical drain of this season, and finish off with stars and underpars. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you're like me, you finished watching an Arsenal game and you're already looking for the next bit of Arsenal coverage you can find. If that sounds like you, follow or subscribe to Arsenal Unfiltered on your podcast app of choice right now to make sure you don't miss a single episode from me. I'm here 3 times a week, reviewing matches and covering Arsenal news, and I'm so excited to have you all here as well. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome back to Arsenal Unfiltered. This is the match review podcast of Arsenal 1, Bournemouth 2 from yesterday afternoon. We're trying a new format today. Hopefully you enjoyed the first half. 5 major talking points about Arsenal. kind of focused on how we played this game, and kind of going through these questions rather than going through the game in sequential nature. If you have enjoyed that, please do let me know on Blue Sky. It's at Arsenal-Unfiltered at bluesky.social.com. Come and find me on there. It's a good place to chat and speak Arsenal without too much negativity, I think. So the next two, we've done the first three questions. The first three questions today is our inexperience showing in this running? Are we terrible at defending set pieces, and how do we get the margins to swing in our favour again? The next question, are we underestimating the emotional and physical drain of this season? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired. I'm really tired of it. We've had some amazing moments this season. I was in the stadium for Arsenal 5, Man City 1. The Sporting victory was really good. We, of course, have done the double over Spurs again. We love that. And Real Madrid, both of those games, incredible. 7-1 against PSV as well in a Champions League knockout game. That was unbelievable. And I think generally our Champions League campaign has been a really nice tonic to a difficult Premier League campaign. But overall, I am tired of it. I think the start of this season really, it put us on the back foot. And I think very early on, we knew that we would have to put together a run of form exactly like the one we did at the back end of last season, which I think any realistic Arsenal fan was thinking we're not going to do that again. That we need to start the season better this year to make sure that we don't need to do that again. And things just really did not go our way. We lost Ødegaard early, had to come up with a different way of playing. Then, of course, we lost Saka. We had the red cards, all of that sort of stuff. And that's been draining as a fan. It's been draining to kind of come and watch these games. It's been draining to go from Real Madrid and incredible performances at the Bernabeu and playing PSG and first Champions League semi-final since 2009 to Bournemouth. And with all due respect to Bournemouth, of course, they've done a double over us this year. They are an incredible team. They're not the highlight of my season as an Arsenal fan, right? I love watching us go and play Chelsea and Spurs, and this season Real Madrid, PSG, the big games. They're really important to me as a fan, and they're where I get kind of emotional energy from, or we'll get drained if it doesn't go our way, of course. The games against Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Everton, I look at them more as I'm excited for them, of course, but they're not the kind of be all and end all. Sounds silly because we've dropped 6 points to Bournemouth this year, but they are not the kind of games where I want to be getting emotionally up for it. I want a professional performance from Arsenal. That's probably the best way of putting it. And take yesterday. I'm listening to that on the radio on the way home, and I rewatched it this morning, of course. But I was listening to the radio on the way home, and I just felt like I don't want to do this. I don't want to listen to us concede 2 sloppy goals from set pieces and, have to drag ourselves back into it. I just want this to be a simple game. I want to enjoy watching Arsenal. And I feel like we've had too many of those where it should have been simple. Brighton's another one. Both of those games, it felt like it was going to be simple both times. And odd refereeing decisions in both occasions made it feel like a really, really big effort. And I feel like we feel drained from it. I feel drained from it. Imagine how the players must feel. Oh my word. They must be exhausted. I really do think that. And I think we're probably underestimating that because if we feel it, right, and I feel the difficulty going between the Real Madrid, PSG games to the Bournemouth games and the Crystal Palace games, they are clearly feeling it, and they just have not had the depth in that squad to allow them to rotate and manage that feeling and manage their legs. They've not had it. They've had to get themselves up every single week, twice a week for so long. I mean, Martin Ødegaard has played so much football since he came back from injury. Declan Rice has played an inordinate amount of football after not having any time in the summer. Again, you could look at someone like William Saliba. He's made some mistakes in the previous weeks. I think he had a good game yesterday. But he's made some mistakes in the previous weeks. Is that William Saliba? Or is that because he's barely left the side this year? Have we sat him down at all? I certainly can't think of many games. There might be one. Yuri Timber, because Ben White's been out, he's had to play so much, and now he's a doubt for the PSG game, which is a disaster if you ask me. So I think whilst I'm analysing this game, and I think, the first question I asked was inexperience. Is that showing? Yes, I think it is. And I think that's a bit unforgivable. We need to manage these moments better. And Mikel Arteta certainly should be managing the emotions of the moments better for sure. We're missing experienced players, right? That all is true, but at the same time, I do feel for the team. I feel for them. That moment yesterday where no one leapt for the Dean Howson header and the throw-in from Semenyo. No one leapt to deal with it. It's inexcusable in so many ways. But I also think if we just had more players and we'd been able to manage the games in between these Champions League games before that, and we'd had a few more wins and we weren't now in a dangerous position, I think you might chalk that up as like, okay, that's a bit of a brain fart moment. Don't worry about it, we'll go and win this game. And because they've got the energy, they've not played so much football, they can go and do that. As it turned out, what happened there is kind of sent everyone's heads down. Because they're like, oh no, we've made a huge error and we just don't have the energy to go again. We don't have that, what we had last season, that power to keep going. And it's just a real shame we've not been able to manage the fitness at all. And I have looked at this team a number of times over recent weeks, and my major question has been, are we even close to fit? Are we even close to it? I thought Ben White did an okay job yesterday, but didn't have a great game overall. One really nice attacking moment, but apart from that, I think he got beat a number of times and gave the ball away really easily. He does not look fit in the slightest, and if he has to play against Kvaratskhelia, I worry about that. Not because Ben White's a bad player, but he's just not fit. He's just not fit. Bukayo Saka, I think we've rushed him back. He doesn't look fit, doesn't look sharp. It's just worrying. I think we are, as fans, underestimating how much the emotional and physical drain of this season is playing on the players. And my final question is, how have we dropped 21 points from winning positions this year? This will be a short one because I think I've covered a lot of the topics. But for me, let's just look at this at a slightly different angle. We have not had the level, and so for so many reasons. But ultimately it comes down to we have not been at the level you need to go and win the Premier League. Or even to finish second in the Premier League, I would say. We are very, very lucky that a number of teams have been terrible this year. And I wouldn't throw us in as terrible because there's context, and there's context for a lot of teams, to be fair. But, when you look at the overall picture, Tottenham and Manchester United have barely been in, well, they aren't in this league. They are a kind of non-factor. They are not competing for Europe. We've been very lucky that Manchester City had such a barren run earlier in the season. We've been very lucky Newcastle have been good, but they've also had some strange results at times. I think they'll probably look back at their season thinking, if they don't come second, thinking that's a bit of an opportunity missed. Of course, they prioritise the Carabao Cup. Chelsea have been terrible since Christmas. If any of those teams have played slightly better, I think we are far more in the mixer for a really problematic position right now. And I think we're quite lucky. There's factors all across the Premier League, of course, injuries and all of that for every team. But ultimately, we wanted to come and win the Premier League this year, and for a number of reasons, we're not there. And I think in the summer, we're going to have a look back and say, okay, got away with one a little bit this season, because I do still think we'll finish in the top four. Well, it's top five this year, isn't it, for the Champions League? I do think we'll finish there, and that's very, very important. But I'll be disappointed if we don't come second. I said that in the preview pod. And some of these games where we've drawn from winning positions, and like yesterday, we lost from a winning position, 21 points. Not all of them should be attributable to injuries. And not all of them should be attributable to context around the referees. I personally think, yes, everything that I've said today about the inexperience and the injuries and the lack of energy, I think that's all fair and context that we have to go through as a club as we grow and develop, and Arteta and the players, they have to go through this period to come out the other side and go, okay, we've learned from that, we'll know how to do it better next time. But there are a number of points, I think, from that 21 that we have dropped that we we can't put down to those things. We have to just put down to we've not been at the level that we've needed to for many, many periods of this season. I think the players really need to kind of look inside themselves and say, yes, a lot of stuff happened, but did I not give everything, because I know they're working hard, but did I do everything that I could have done? Was I brave enough in every scenario? I think they'll all say probably not. Stars and under pars then to finish before I sum up. So under par, I think this was the most obvious under par in a little while, unfortunately. I'm just going to pull up my stats to make sure I've got it. I think for me, it was very, very clear that Thomas Partey was not at it at all. He really didn't have a good game yesterday, and I thought he was am I going to say that? Yeah, I'm going to say that. I think he was probably a net negative for Arsenal yesterday, and it's not often that I say that about Thomas Partey. It really isn't. But I just felt like he gave the ball away in some really promising scenarios for Arsenal, and just had some sloppy balls, and was way below his best. Yep, I found it here. So he only made 75.5% of his passing yesterday. Really, really low for him. I'm just going to pull up his match logs here on FB Ref, so that I can kind of read you out some of the recent games that he's had, because that is usually something you can really rely on Thomas Partey for, that he is going to make as many of his passes as we need him to. He is a pass monster, really. But yesterday was really not on it at all. Okay, so let's read back here. So 75.5% yesterday. That is the first time he has been below 80% pass completion since is that the 18th of January? Surely not. It is 18th of January, the draw with Aston Villa. Incredible. That is a lot of games. At that point, he was 77.6. So this is his lowest pass completion, maybe of the season. Oh my goodness, it is. It's his lowest pass completion of the season. An incredibly poor game with the ball. Over recent weeks, he's not been below 85 in the previous 4 games. And just as well, again, I've said this a couple of times, something that you don't get from stats is that kind of the timing of it. He gave them away in certain positions and certain periods where you were just like, why have you done that? Why have you done that? Felt very sloppy from him. And he carried the ball okay at times, but I don't think any of it was particularly impactful. So Thomas Partey gets my under par. He really needs to recover for the PSG game, because that was poor. Someone though who I think really deserves some credit, because he's taken it on the chin in recent weeks. I've criticised him. Arsenal fans in general have criticised him, is Martin Odegaard, and I thought he was much better in this game. He, in comparison, had 93% of his passes made. Now, that is his highest in a very long time, whereas that was Thomas Partey's lowest in a very long time. It's actually his highest in an extremely long time. It's his highest of the season. If you discount a 1 out of 1 pass against Inter, I don't think that really can count in the stats. He's played very, very well yesterday, made some really, really good pass completion numbers. I know what you're thinking. Well, it doesn't matter if he does 93.2% passing if they're all sideways, but yesterday you can't level that at him. He had 9 progressive passes, 2 progressive carries as well. Obviously, the assist for Declan Rice, that was a wonderful piece of play. A real nice drop of the shoulder, and something we need to see from Martin Odegaard more. That is something that it's felt like it's been missing for a number of reasons from his game this year. Maybe the injury, maybe the fitness, maybe having a kid, maybe not having Saka, all of these things, right? But it's been missing. And I remember I did a podcast a little while ago, is he back to his best form? Because he did a little flick round a Chelsea player that I thought was really good, and he collected a number of assists, I think, in the Chelsea game and in some of his internationals, and they were quite impressive assists. I thought, okay, he's back. That's really dropped off since then, and that moment yesterday where he spins out from the Thomas Partey pass and puts Declan Rice through is another one of those moments where I just watch him and I go, that's the guy. I want more of him. So fingers crossed that is That is him coming back. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave it there. That's a new format for us. So not going through the game super sequentially, but talking about major talking points. Of course, we answered, is our inexperience showing in this run-in? I think it is. Not got those key experienced players there, and Arteta is obviously doing this for the first time. Are we terrible defending set pieces? Well, there's some context in that we concede very, very few goals overall, but we are definitely worse at defending set pieces than we are defending open play. How do we get the margins to swing in our favour again? Talent. Talent is the thing. We have to get more talent, more depth in the squad, more options. Are we underestimating the emotional and physical drain of the season? Probably. I think it's been very emotional and physically draining for us, so I can't imagine how it is from the players. And 21 points dropped from winning positions this season is not good enough. No matter what context you provide, we could be in a far more comfy position right now and not worrying about these next few games if we had just been better in a couple of certain moments this season. It would have changed the end of our season and made this feel a lot easier. I think overall, I am now super, super worried about second. Like I said before, I'm not crazy worried about top 5, but Newcastle and Chelsea, we need that game to be a draw. If that game's a draw, I think we can probably get over the line here in maybe not, maybe it'll be third, because Manchester City are right close to us, and I think they've got a fairly easy run in. So yeah, look, we need that game to be a draw no matter what, just to make things feel a little bit more comfortable. And we're going to need now a result against Liverpool or Newcastle, at least. I think we're going to, I said before, it would be nice to get 7 points and wrap that up. There would have been a win against Bournemouth, Southampton, and 1 point against either Liverpool or Newcastle. That would have been enough for me. I would have been happy for that. I think that still is probably the case, is 7 points would be really, really nice right now. But I can't see us doing that. If we can get a point against Liverpool or Newcastle, that'd be great. And then obviously have to go and beat Southampton on the final day. It's not done. It's not wrapped up by any means. And I really, really hope that we can get an early enough point or early enough points that we don't need to worry too much about it. Like I said in the middle, guys, if you've enjoyed this episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, or you've enjoyed any episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts from. It massively, massively helps me grow the podcast and spread it to more people. So, really appreciate you if you have done that. And if you haven't left a review, please consider going and doing that. Obviously, be back for the PSG preview game next week. PSG preview pod of the game next week. And look, I've said all of that negative stuff. The world could be very, very different Wednesday evening. If I go to bed Wednesday night and we are in the Champions League final, you can basically forget everything that I just said. That's how tight the margins are on this season. It really feels like, yes, in the summer we will dissect it all, but everything hinges on Wednesday night now. Absolutely everything. And a Champions League final would really, really go a long way to make this group feel better, make the fans feel better, and give us a whole lot more energy going into a very difficult final 3 Premier League games. Going to leave it there, guys. Thank you so much for following. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.